In a speech after the interview, here the professor is giving the demonstration and showing the clip that was never aired.
This clip I requested to be shown on the Tucker Carlson show, and I couldn't see what others were saying, but they didn't show this clip. It's ironic, this was the one that wouldn't play for us tonight, but now you see it, okay? So you've all seen it collapse, and as you notice, it dips in the middle, falls straight down and very rapidly. And that's B, World Trade Center 7. Over here we have a large, as you see, a high-rise in Madrid, Spain last year that burned. It was an inferno for about 24 hours. It did not collapse. And indeed, there has been no example, at least none before 9/11, 2001, where fire has caused a building to collapse completely. So this is A, but that is in fact the official explanation of the collapse of Building 7, that it was due to fire.
I started looking at the molten metal, you see. And to me, Mike, this is one area that had not been researched much before. All three buildings, both towers, in the rubble, in the basement areas, and Building 7, there's these pools of molten metal.
This is how it's been since day one. Oh, it's unbelievable. And this is 6 weeks later, almost 6 weeks later. And as we get closer to the center of this, it gets hotter and hotter. It's probably 1,500 degrees. We've had some small windows into what we thought was the core at some point, and it looked like an oven. You know, it was just roaring inside. And it was just a bright, bright reddish orange color. See that stuff he's pulling out? What was that, Chief? We're gonna hold off on the water. See the stuff he's pulling out? Yeah. It's red hot. If we hit it too much steam, you won't be able to see what he's doing. Great.
So I'm looking through the official reports. What do they say about the molten metal? They say nothing. But wait a minute. This is important evidence. It's discussed by many people. Initially on the scene, you have people saying the molten metal is flowing down off the rubble. It's flowing down into these gigantic pools of molten metal now. I mean, it's flowing. It's not like it just formed somehow after the fact with fires, but it's molten right just very shortly after. And still flowing off. So where'd that come from? Not from fires. We agree on that. Where did it come from? The only explanation I can find for that is exothermic chemical reactions. And the most notable suspect is a thermite reaction. It doesn't have to be thermite. There are other high temperature chemical reactions, but that's the most likely one. Thermite can be purchased on eBay, and many people, I show it in my class, physics, and I'll be showing it this fall in my physical science class. What we've got is a mixture of iron oxide, which provides the oxygen, and aluminum powder. A lot of that dust is aluminum oxide. You form aluminum oxide and molten iron. That's what the molten iron looks like. Notice the color there. It's a yellow-white hot, which would be easily 1,000 centigrade. It's around 2,500 Fahrenheit or so. It requires the oxide. It's the oxygen here that's held by the iron that allows this to go. And as we bump these together now, you'll have a reaction in which the aluminum picks up, steals the oxygen from the iron oxide, and the aluminum just grabs on that oxygen and produces a very high temperature reaction. And the result is jet fuel will not ignite that. That's one thing. But you get it to ignite with an arc, for example, or burning magnesium. It will ignite. This is just kind of a fun way to show on a small scale. The products are molten iron. Remember, all three buildings had molten metal. And aluminum oxide, which goes off primarily as a dust. You know those enormous dust clouds? You can imagine when you assemble these chemicals on a large scale, the amount of heat that you generate. People say, well, if there's explosives or something, okay, you've got your arguments, but where's the smoking gun? By analyzing this, we determined it is not molten aluminum from the plane, okay. Indeed, it contains a great deal of iron, which is the product of the thermite reaction. It's not just structural steel that somehow melted, no. It's very little chromium. But it does have sulfur and manganese and some other elements that are characteristic, you see. It's like a fingerprint that the criminal left behind. This carries with it evidence. How was this done? What was used? And I should explain real quickly. This particular, people ask me all the time, where'd you get this? Well, there's a woman, she read my paper. I'm calling for an investigation, particularly of this molten metal, and see what's going on. She immediately sent me this sample from this memorial to 9/11 and to the families, who I deeply sympathize with those families. So we checked this metal, and that's how we got it. And another sample like it, same characteristics, high in iron, manganese, fluorine.